Okay, I'm just going to remind you of how I want you to present these cases. Okay, your steps in your presentation. What do you want? The next step you want for this client. Usually you're using this method at a time when something's bogged down, right? So what is it that's bogged down, and what would be a good resolution? So if the person won't come in to talk to you, or they come in and talk to you but they aren't very open, or one of your kids isn't going to school and she won't talk to you about it, or whatever it is, that the next step. What do you want out of this? What does the client want? That when we miss it, or the part of this step I should say, when we miss it, allows us to prepare a plan that doesn't work. Because if we aren't thinking about what they want, then how are we going to motivate them? That's key to motivate them. So what do they want right now? And the next is to look at their personality style, right? We worked a lot with that last week. What do we come up with your lady? Introversive, right? Yeah. Was about 60%, let's say. And what else? Okay, inhibited and sensitive, so maybe 30, 20. That's as close as you need to come. We don't need the thing to be perfect, but it just improves the whole, our whole outlook, as far as how to work with them. Okay, what's the third step we're looking for? We're going to develop a plan, right? And we're going to take into consideration I got a list of 100 interventions. If you don't have one, I'll give you a copy of one. But you're supposed to have in your mind like a list of 10 things I know how to do. Right? 10 things I might do with somebody in a case management framework. And then you come up with, what is the next thing I have to do? Session-focused planning, as it's called. Session-focused planning. What's the next thing I'm going to do the next time I see this person to move this case forward? And you're going to, be picking from these interventions that you know how to do, and you're going to think in the context of sequencing and pairing. So sequencing means, I might think this would be a good thing to do, psychoeducation with this girl because she's got a drug problem, and I might think this is a good thing to do, role reversal, because the way when I start talking to her and giving her information, she cuts me off, but which one would go first, right? That's what sequencing means. So you're going to have to get the girl to quit cutting you off when you're talking to her before you can give her psychoeducation. That makes sense, right? So that would be your intervention, your first one. Except now you're thinking about also pairing. Is that enough? Do I want to start with just that, or add, 5 minutes in the session, I'm going to let her catharsis is a method, right? I'm going to let her tell me how she's feeling, but I'm going to tell her it's only going to be for 10 minutes. So you might pair 10 minutes of catharsis with a role reversal so that she will see the effects of how it feels when you're cutting someone off in a conversation. Pairing, because two things correctly added together are stronger than either one of them individually. So then the next session you might be able to try for psychoeducation, right? So this is all there really is to planning, to making the intervention, more impactful. What do you want? What does the person want? What is their personality dynamics? Given the personality dynamics, what's the next session-focused planning thing you can do? Taking in consideration, you probably have more than 10 things, but at least you ought to have a list of 10 types of interventions you feel comfortable with. And should I consider pairing as the next step, or doing something individually? And if so, why? You're always thinking back to this. See, the mistake that people make in implementing these things, they're thinking back to this. You want to keep that in mind. Yeah, what do I want? What does the client want? You want to keep that in mind. But the approach is going to depend on what you've found out about the person's personality, right? And if you have to, go to the book. Reference. What book? The book that shows normal to abnormal, so that you can see, what have I got to work with? And I refresh my mind every time. There's no sense trying to memorize any of that. A very simple procedure. What do I want out of this session? What does the client want? Now, part of how you know what the client wants is sometimes to look at the personality. For example, when you look at the passive, like a negativistic type personality person, they want more control. When you look at a histrionic person, they want more attention. Right? It's all right there in the book. So that helps you. If they haven't made clear, if the client hasn't made clear what they want, look at the personality. What does a person like that often want? What motivates them? Then you think of the planning or the session. Okay, what time do I have available? What's the possibilities? And here's the things I know how to do. Should I start with one or should I pair? And then the treatment plan just becomes a series of interventions. Session, 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 right? You might have 2, 3, 5 times to get involved with this person. You might go back to pairing down the road here, using intervention number 5 and number 3. You might continue with that to the next session. If you think you didn't get everything out of it you could have, then reduce it down to, just one. Maybe use intervention number 10. It takes some getting used to because you have to fit some variables in here. These are your variables here, right? What interventions you feel comfortable. These are the client's variables. What do we know about the personality style of the client, right? But the benefit of this, and there are some other methods used for other purposes, the benefit of this, the thing that makes it unique is it's a mechanical way. Did I spell that right? Yeah. To get an individualized intervention. That's the classic thing you're looking for in just about any kind of work. You're looking for a series of steps that you can use so that, remember, so you don't have to think so hard. So it goes back to this part of the brain that's kind of automatic, but it doesn't come out with a standardized intervention. So it's not a cookie cutter thing. Well, let's set all these parents down and teach them this session, and teach them this session, and teach them this session. That's a classroom. That's a cookie cutter thing. It's good for training. It's good for parent training. Okay? It's good for various things. Or let's sit this client down, and the first day we're going to talk to him about this, and then the next time we're going to talk to him about that. That's a standardized intervention. It's not an individualized intervention. A counselor can do that. A paraprofessional person can do that. What we're supposed to be doing is coming up with individualized interventions based on the dynamics of the person and the situation. But if we have to think hard about that every time, we get worn down. So you have a mechanical procedure that, used often enough, becomes semi-automatic to you, but it results in an individualized intervention. Does that make sense to you?